How's it going, guys? I just got done watching Disclosure Day last night, and this movie is directed by Steven Spielberg, who is definitely one of the most best directors who ever live and who ever will live. He's absolutely fantastic. I love so many of his movies, Raiders of the Lost Ark, Saving Private Ryan, Jurassic Park, and so many others that are just so good. And with this movie, I was looking forward to it because he's done a lot of personal projects over the past few years that have been a bit smaller scale, but this movie felt like more of a bigger blockbuster, and I was really looking forward to see what he does, what he's going to try to do here. And this movie had a great cast, you know, it has Emily Blunt, Josh O'Connell, it has Colin Firth, Colman Domingo, it has Wyatt Russell in here as well. Just an overall solid, well-rounded cast. And I was really excited for the fact that this movie felt like Steven Spielberg returning to the big screen. You know, it felt like Steven Spielberg doing a big blockbuster once again. So I was really excited for it. Starting off with the things I liked about this movie, I think that, again, Steven Spielberg just knows how to make a movie feel very movie-like you're going in and it's worth seeing on the big screen. The way he shoots his films, the way they look, the big wide angles he uses, the little action sequences that we get in here, it all feels like it's worth seeing on the big screen. And him blended in with John Williams' music, who does the music for this film, it almost makes it feel like nostalgic while you're watching the movie, and it like feels cozy while I was watching this movie. I just love the way that this movie was able to make me feel. Continuing on from that, I think this movie does a really good job of building intrigue. You're constantly trying to figure out what is happening and what is going on with these characters. Every scene reveals a little bit more, and the characters themselves are also really interesting and really well acted. I think Emily Blunt here can definitely be nominated for an Oscar with this role. She's really good in this movie. She manages to play a character I haven't really seen her play that much before, and she's very interesting in this movie. It's a character, yeah, like unlike I've ever seen her play before. A lot of her more impressive scenes in this movie is when she has to kind of mimic things and do things with her mouth, and apparently she worked with a dialect coach, and everything that she did in the movie was on camera and it wasn't ADR. And there were some scenes in here we could tell like there was a lot of work put into that, and I thought that was really, really cool. I think Colin Firth also does a good job playing our villain character here. During the first half of the movie, he kind of feels typical, but then once you get to know more of his motivation, his reasoning behind what he's trying to do, it kind of becomes a bit more easier to understand him. And I think Colman Domingo always does a good job in whatever role he's given. I do really like the fact that this movie has this way of building this kind of slow intrigue, but it also throws you into it without really setting up the characters that much, you know? Like, when you're introduced to, like, Josh O'Connell's character, you're just thrown into him. Like, it's not like a day in his life and then he gets tackled into the situation. No, everything's already happening and you're playing kind of catch up the whole movie, which is able to kind of keep you and help you locked in because of the fact that this movie is a bit of a slower burn. I think the pacing is also really strong during this movie. This movie is 2.5 hours, which I will get into with my negatives, but I think the pacing overall and the way that scenes connect to each other, I think that was all really done really well. And I was never really bored during this movie. And there's also just this sense of wonder and this sense of awness whenever you're watching a movie by Steven Spielberg that is really captured in this movie, especially a scene towards the third act, which has been kind of spoiled in the marketing. So if you haven't seen the trailers, I would honestly stay clear of that. But there's some scenes towards the end of this movie that I'm like, that feels like so classic Spielberg with the music and the way that they're visualized. It just felt really cool to see that on the big screen once again. And I do really like the way that this movie tackles the idea of the fact that if aliens were real, and they could be, but if they are and the government's hiding secrets of them and they disclose them, it's like, how would that affect the real world, you know? And it was really interesting to see them tackle those issues with people of faith. You know, how would that combat their idea of, you know, their belief? And also just with regular people on a day-to-day basis, how would the idea to know that there's other life out there, would that change the way they perceive of themselves? Would that change the way they perceive of how they believe the universe to be? And that was really interesting because it gives the people who don't want this information to be released, it kind of gives them a reasoning behind on why they don't want to do this, because they're like, hey guys, like if we do this, how do you know this will be for the good of people? And how do you know this will be good for people to know? Do you think this will actually destroy everything that we've built in civilization? And how will it affect people with religion? And will it be able to destroy destroy whatever their belief system is. So I found that to be really interesting. The movie kind of proposes some interesting questions and theories on the whole thing of Disclosure Day, and I like that this movie actually does take a bold swing, and it's not super sci-fi, it's more like a espionage movie, and it's more like about the ramifications of what would happen if this secret was revealed, not really talking specifically about the science fiction aliens themselves. So I found that to be a really interesting and bold narrative to take, and it found to be refreshing. I went with my parents to go see this movie, and my mom really enjoyed it, and my dad said it was refreshing. And he usually only says that about like a cold glass of beer, so I guess that's a good sign. And the movie does overall feel fresh and original, while definitely harkening back to what Steven Spielberg is known for. And I found that to be a nice blend. It's just not a movie that I feel like we would get nowadays, you know? And that's what I think is so nice to have it for right now and for the summer blockbuster movie season, because this isn't your typical blockbuster, but it feels big on a grand scale. Moving on into my negatives here, I do find that the movie has a bit of script conveniences where characters find themselves in a situation that's hard to get out of, and because the script has to have them live or make it out of whatever situation they do, it just kind of feels a bit convenient, whether it's bad guys not being able to see where the good guys are in a most obvious hiding place, whether it's just people having a bad shot or people being bad drivers. It does have a bit of that script convenience where I'm like, okay, there's no way you could have easily gotten out of that situation as easy as you did. And also, I do want to comment on the fact that this movie does leave you off on a bit of a cliffhanger almost. Like, I want them to make a sequel to this movie. It kind of feels like you're thrown in halfway through a season of television, and then right when you're about to get to the finale episode, like, you kind of get to the episode right before the finale, and then right when the finale is about to hit, the movie ends, and you're kind of just sitting there like, where's the rest of it? You were like, the movie gets to its most interesting point in the last like 5 minutes of the movie, and I'm like, I wanted to see more of what would happen. I get they want to leave it up into interpretation, or maybe they are making plans for a sequel. I'm not entirely sure. I would like to see that, but I do think that if they move this movie stretch on a bit longer so you could see the actual interesting parts and what Steven Spielberg was trying to explore with this movie, I can't really get into spoilers with that, it would be really interesting, because I would have hoped to see more from the third act of this movie, but I am happy with the third act that we did get as well. And also, just commenting on the length of the movie, I did say that the movie was well paced, and I do stand by that, but I also do think that this movie is a bit too long. I think there are sections of it that you could have cut out, and I think for the size of the story that they were trying to tell, like for the amount of places they had to go, locations, and for the amount of character development that you do get from this movie, I do think that it doesn't really warrant the 2.5 hour runtime, and I think you could have shaved off 20-30 minutes from this movie. But overall, guys, with Disclosure Day, I was really happy with this movie. It felt good to go out to go see a blockbuster that wasn't your typical blockbuster. Steven Spielberg knows how to craft fascinating sequences. His work with John Williams is really good, and his work with his actors and actresses is all really strong in this movie, and I think this movie overall proposes some nice questions. It promotes some nice conversation to have in today's life, and it doesn't feel like this movie was really meant for today's time. It almost feels like it could have been released 20 years ago and it would have had the same impact. Overall, with Disclosure Day, guys, I'm going to give it an 82%, and on the rewatchability scale, I'm going to say it's a good one-time watch. I'm not necessarily itching to go back to rewatch this movie. It is a bit of a slow burn, but I'm happy I did see it the one time, and I think it is worth seeing in theaters for that one-time watch. Thank you guys so much for watching this review. Stay tuned for more reviews coming very soon. I will be gone for the next week or two, so I probably won't be able to get a review out to you guys next weekend. But for the weekend after that, hopefully I can get something out for you guys. Comment down below, what did you guys think of Disclosure Day? Did you see it? What did you think about it? Let me know down below. And as always, have a good one.